pandemic got us into a reflective space and made us look inward to see what we can do for the world at large. As a self expression coach, I became a catalyst for women and started Vani, a one on one coaching program for women on finding their voice, to speak up, to be visible. As a storyteller, I spotted there were many ordinary people amongst us leading extraordinary lives, making a difference to the world, and they needed to be heard. Thus was born You and I with Rashmi Shetty, where amazing personal journeys with their uniqueness and individuality are showcased. A reaffirmation of the fact: open your eyes wider. The world is far more beautiful when we acknowledge the presence of both you and I. Our guest today is Shivani Kapoor. Shivani, or Sonia as she is more popularly called, is an environmentalist and nature lover committed to greening the world around us for over the last decade. A self taught horticulturist, Shivani specializes in sustainable horticulture. She has been instrumental in making Legend, a 14-acre condominium, into one of the greenest in Gurgaon by transforming a rather barren landscape into dense greenery and planting and growing over 250 large trees. With the active support of conscientious citizens, she has started a project of developing green zones in the green belts of Sector 57. She also leads a citizen movement with 2,000 residents to convert the entire society into a green society which recycles all its waste and contributes nothing to the ever-growing landfills. Shivani is the founder of Marigold by Sonia, a green venture that is primarily into landscaping and greening any space, from a tiny apartment area to large land spaces. Listen in as she shares her journey to understanding how nature has become her caretaker. Hi, Shivani. Such a pleasure having you on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. I read a post by your husband, and it was such a beautiful tribute that he had given for the work that you do. There are many aspects of the work that you do that he had written on LinkedIn, which intrigued me, impressed me, and I became curious to have a chat with you for the way he had presented what you do. And he had put some pictures which were absolutely fantastic of the work that you had done and completed. Thank you so much for giving time to be on this conversation. And as we progress, I'll find out about what you're currently doing. But to be the person who's working day in and day out with nature, how was Shivani's childhood? What kind of a girl were you? And was nature an integral part of your growing up years as well? So this is how we'll start the conversation.
So, hi Rashmi. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, and it's a pleasure being able to talk to you and bring some of the things that I'm very interested in forward. And of course, thank you to my husband who's been my pillar, and it's really satisfying when your partner finds happiness in and support in what you do. And well, it was really nice of him to put that up, and I'm really lucky, I would say.
Yeah.
And to go forward on your question, yes, as a person in my childhood, I was a thorough bookworm, but surrounded by nature. I had a family where my parents were both extremely fond of gardening, and not only gardening, but everything that came and coexisted with nature. So my father loved it in all the little houses that we lived in, and we changed a house every 3 years. One thing was common. There were always plants of you know some greenery around it, whether in any form. But my house was always green. And to complement his green love for greens, my mom has always been a compassionate person who allowed things to coexist. So while we had the greens from my father, we had all the passion for every kind of fauna from my mom. So yes, I grew up in an environment which exactly mirrors what I am doing today.
And when you say you grew up in different parts, what were the states that you grew up in, and what were these places which had green so integral into your living spaces?
So, born in Amritsar, but grew up in the Colliery belt. We like grew up in Durgapur and Asansol, and then the northeast and Kolkata as well. So, um, there were houses which had a lot of green built into these. And in Durgapur especially, I remember we having a house with a small garden which my father developed into a award-winning rose garden. And moving on to the several houses that we changed, we were blessed to have at least a veranda with every house where he enjoyed his passion. And but the best was in Assam, in Guwahati, where um, one part of the house was attached to a lake, and we had a forest right behind the house. So that was the best memory that I have of the wonderful greens that surrounded my house. So, but yeah, this what I grew up with is not even half of what my children see around them today. So I have very lovely memories of those houses.
I know, I know. And I'm sure being in the midst of nature somehow calmed you as a person. So, how were you as a little girl as far as studies was concerned? What were your plans as a little girl? To grow up to do what? Because, as little children, we have ambitions and dreams which change every year, maybe every week. So, what were some of yours which uh, kind of helped you trace your path into the herd, along with a herd joining a group because the rest did it, or you took your own path and just followed your passion?
So I was no different from the other children. I was a good student, and for the longest time, I wanted to be a journalist. If you ask me today, I had no reason, but I did want to do that because I love reading. Apart from nature, I think my second love is reading books. I'm the best gift for me would be giving me a book. So, journalism was what attracted me when I was a kid. But then, like you rightly mentioned, we change our things as we grow up. And one of those growing up things is also to fit into the gang that you hang out with. So everybody was doing CA, and I was like, how can I be left out? So I joined CA, and for the longest time, I worked in BFSI. But this connect with nature kept happening on the side. I did a lot of freelance work, worked on a lot of things with the local governments, the RWAs, and for years, I did it without realizing that this probably is my true calling and nothing else. And then, in a moment of personal tragedy, uh, this was I turned to this as a healing mechanism, and nothing helped me heal better and cope with the trauma that I was going through uh, than being surrounded by this and by nature and by working with people who were so closely attached to nature. And when I say working with people, it's the gardeners, the malis. And I remember being lost in those conversations for hours and not realizing, okay, I have to go back home. I have a family back, and they might be waiting for me, and they might be wondering where I am, doing what. So this is when I realized that everything else is secondary. This is what I makes me happy, and this is what I should be doing. So yeah.
Okay, and you said you were with BFSI, and parallelly you were working not realizing that you were in love with nature and you're going to eventually do that. So, what kind of work were you doing parallelly that got you getting your hands dirty or working with nature?
So it started with us moving into a newly minted condominium in Gurgaon, and while the builder had given lovely green spaces, there was nothing that could we could call green, and and that was the time when the personal tragedy also had stuck. So I just kind of volunteered that okay, I would take up the task of voluntarily take up the task of getting this place into something that looks like a green heaven, and that's how I got started, and that's how I got my best friends for life, the gardeners that I work with. And slowly I realized that what we try and make our gardens into are those exotic cosmetic gardens, which is not what how nature intended them to be. But there is so much of maintenance that is needed for such gardens. But with the work that I did with these people, we realized the power of using indigenous, the cost effectiveness of going indigenous, and how you can actually, by spending a bare minimum, have a lovely garden year after year if you use what is local, what is suited to your current environment, and know how to harvest seeds and create a seed bank, etc. So all of that, and then from there, from managing the RWA, one condominium progressed to actually creating green belts, which are self-sustainable. Now Delhi NCR is like it gets really hot during summers. So one of the reasons why green belts go not maintained, or people don't bother to create them, is like how do we create a source of watering? How do we stop them from being preyed upon by stray cattle, etc.? So working on that was another learning for me, that nature has created ways in which these coexistences can happen. So the next step was creating green belts which are self-sustainable, which did not need too much watering, or which could do with some bit of partnership between the several condominiums that dot Gurgaon, and people who love nature. So that was the second step, and from there, never look back into what I've been doing.
I loved what you said that when you wanted to overcome the tragedy, you went into spending time with nature. Was it something that you consciously did at first and then just seamlessly went into doing, spending more time with it? Or was it a suggestion given by somebody? How did you even think to overcome the sorrow that you were going through personally? Spending time with nature would kind of heal you. Did you read it somewhere? What prompted you to take that path? Because there are many ways people journal, people talk to other people. How did you think of getting your hands and yourself close to nature?
So I didn't read about it. I experienced it. Um, there were two experiences which were life turning. One was a short visit to this forested area where I sat underneath a tree and I had this moment of enlightenment, whatever you say, where I felt that there is nothing more stronger and resilient than nature. Um, and another was a simple experience that I had with a plant that I brought back home. So I used to drop my daughter off to her play school, and on my way back, I saw this tiny sapling growing on the road. And I thought in my mind that probably it'll get trampled, mar jayega. So let me just bring it home and see how it goes from there. So that sapling I brought home, I transplanted into a container, and I would often forget to water it for days. I would see the leaves, droop like this, but the day I would water it would bloom like this. So it so happened that uh, once I took a really longish break without realizing that I have not watered the poor plant. It was nearly 25 days it had gone without water. And then when I came back, and I thought I've lost it now. I came back and watered, and it bloomed again. The leaves were back again within a day. So that really set me thinking, if a small plant can, hold itself against so many adversaries that it's going through, what stops me? I have a functioning brain, like a high level thinking. Why not accept what is going on and make the best of it? Like the plant is making, it's probably waiting that don't give up. There will soon be a time when you will get water. She will not forget. She will come back and hold you. This is what was a big learning for me. And eventually, I took that plant and planted it in one of the gardens that I know. I should take care. And today, it's a big tree. It's a nice flourishing tree. So that lesson I tell my children also, that if you hold on to whatever is happening in your life, thinking that this too shall pass, you will be like this tree. It went through several uh, difficult stages, and because it didn't give up, today it's got its place in a garden where it flourishes, it's flowering, it has fruits, all because it didn't give up. It was resilient. So resilience is the most profound lesson that I learned, and I strongly believe that for anybody looking to heal, nature is the best that you could do. And I didn't have to go to expensive therapies, this, that, nothing. It's just happened. This story I often tell my children, that this is what you should learn and not give up at all, ever.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, when you have living proof, I think the story is far more effective as well. Because everyone to whom you share the story, if you show them the tree, they know what is the story behind it. And I'm sure for many such plants and trees around us,
So Rohit
there
has
are
mentioned
stories like this.
Rohit has mentioned that plant crash. It actually, the whole thing came out of this, because most of the times we think, okay, it to we trash. Most people who get house plants or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they don't realize that what you think is dying is actually trying its best to survive. If I even give a tiny bit of support, it springs back. And I tell you, it's incredible how I have seen the the most, the hopeless of plants, like if I call them that, the ones who are, the people actually say, "To bachi nahi sakta," springing back to life just by, just by coming into an environment where they feel that, okay, I've reached a place where I know I will be taken care of. They they really fight to survive, and I have seen the worst cases spring back to life.
Mm.
So from that incident at plant crash, thing came up where at my home, any and everybody is open to leave behind a plant. You want me to nurture, bring it back to life, we do that. You want me to keep it forever, I do that. But I've learned my lesson. Do not give up on anything. You do your best, and I'm sure it'll fight back. So far, it has been true.
So, so beautiful. Okay, now we'll go back to the professional Shivani, to the work, and this parallelly gave you a lot of healing that you were doing, the work with uh, the nature, the healing process. It gave you a lot of calmness, and it helped you. But what gave you the courage to, and what prompted you to give up your professional life that you had all set to move into a space where you're completely and literally dirtying your fingers with soil, nature, and making that your profession?
So here I'll go back to that old saying and reverse it a little bit. Every successful man has a woman behind him. I would say every woman like me who gets to follow her passion is probably has a husband like Rohit firmly backing her up. So he knew that this is what I really wanted to do. So just before COVID struck, he actually told me that why not? I am there. I'll back it up thoroughly. It's okay. I mean, at least try, try to karo. You shouldn't have that regret in life that I never tried. What worst? You would not succeed commercially, but at least you will have it that I I uh, I
Right.
did try. But he was one pivot, but the other one was all these gardeners that I worked with, unfortunately, several of them lost their jobs. And uh, I wanted to do something to help them get employment, or at least something that keeps their home, at least the home fires burning. So Rohit then told me, see, listen, you will be helping them either ways. You will be helping them financially. Then why not try take up, at least reach out and try take up some work or project in this way, either this way or that way. You will be helping them out financially. Just think that they earned it. They might feel better that they've earned it and not taken a not taken a favor from you, which struck a note. And since I had already had a reputation, if you say, that um, I successfully had turned green, like barren patches to greens, and people had seen the commitment and passion despite having a job and the responsibility of a caregiver at home, and they had seen me work like that. So getting
No,
my
no,
first.
1 minute, 1 minute. Oh, so apart from your office space, you started doing it for other spaces as well, parallelly while you were working?
Yes, all freelancing, all pro bono.
Oh, okay.
So
No, no, but how did you get the first project then? This was part of your job that you were doing when you were creating the green space actually in your office space. But how did it move into getting orders from other people while you're working?
office was separate. I was
Yeah,
working,
yeah.
and creating greens was separate. Working with RWAs, working with governments on green belts. So that was running parallelly pro bono with my career. The
Okay. Okay.
BFSI vertical, and briefly I was also into EdTech. So it was running parallelly. But like um, Rohit and I always had these conversations, and he always used to encourage me that take up something that you're really passionate about, and you're lucky that you have a passion. Not many people can even think of what their passion is. So you have a defined passion. You should be focused on that because you anyways give so much of your time to this. And then this incident happened at the gardeners that I worked with. They lost their jobs. So like I said, I anyways would have helped them financially. So I said, why not take up something and charge for it? I had been working without charging for so far, and he said, use that whatever you want to fund them, and that made sense, and it all worked very beautifully because I already had this a whole set of work that I had done. People who knew my commitment and passion and knowledge, etc. So getting my first assignment or project, so to say, was not easy. I had just had to drop it to friends that, I'm thinking of doing this. And it all started coming from day one. Uh, I haven't had to look back. In fact, knock on wood, it has worked very well. I, like Rohit mentioned, I don't have any social media page or website, etc. It's all word of mouth, one happy person referring to the other. That's how it. That's how it moved.
Oh, wow. Okay, so which means from the pro bono space, you moved into yours as a business venture in COVID period,
Yes.
as recent as 2019, 2020.
Yeah, yeah. Actually,
Oh.
just a couple of months before.
COVID hit. Okay, okay. So when you go into a space, Shivani, and you're looking at the space, so are you now in the category of a landscape artist? Is that how people look at you? Do they give you spaces and tell you to convert it, or do you rearrange their gardens? What exactly do you do?
So we do everything. So I have so if mostly what happens is I'm given a space, and usually when I'm given a space, it's a apartment with like sometimes with or without any terraces.
That
But
is,
people, this is my space. Please help me get some green or something that I can manage. So there are there are projects like that. Other projects that come up is those large lawns, etc. That you take this up and start from scratch where there is nothing growing and I actually build it up. And third, and the most interesting, is you have an existing garden and you want to somehow redo it. And my condition is that I'm not going to uproot anything, as in kill anything or throw away anything. I have a team who is excellent in transplanting. So recreating is the most fulfilling because I'm able to satisfy what my client needs of me, and I'm able to save the green that needs a shift, or that needs to be done, taken back, and I adopt them. So if there is something that is not working somewhere, if someone says I'm not liking the way this tree is blocking my window or this that, so um, I will either adopt it or I will recreate the space so that it works well for both. So everything that is needed is done.
Okay. Another aspect that you said, because you said I'll never pluck and kill any plant, I would transplant it and put it elsewhere. Another thing that you said in the course of your journey, you said was that you work with indigenous plants, local varieties. Now, there are some people who are crazy about exotic plants and not the local ones. How do you convince such clients, and what made you realize that local can be made beautiful?
So I'll take the second part first. What made me realize that local can be made beautiful is that it is so effortless. So one of the green belts that we converted was, wanted to have flowers, and also flowers which support the bee and the butterfly population. And while the aesthetics come from me, I completely listen to the advice given by my partners, because they are the ones who are closely working on this and have years of wisdom which I cannot possibly replace. So he told me, Didi, and they call me Didi, that Didi, ये करना है ना. So the easiest thing is हम सरसों लगाते हैं, a patch with sarso. And then he said, there is this, आप लोग सब gulmohar, you really, everybody wants gulmohar, but it's a tree that has very weak branches and it's not fit to be used as a parking lot ka tree. This is something which is local. He mentioned a thing, and ये लगाएंगे ना तो it'll be flower throughout the year, effortlessly it will flower and it will look beautiful. When I heard those kind of conversations, I said it makes sense. And then the other, realization was most builders and most people. If you see any new, even in Bangalore, maybe if there is something that is coming up new, you will see palms. There, I mean, Bangalore has such good weather. You could do so much with it, but all that you see is a variety of palms. Those date palms and everything, which is not made for our climate, which does nothing for your local flora and fauna. So while this is part of my passion, the other passion that I have is also waste management and conservation, and also it's married together. So it really used to hurt me and pain me that while they are claiming that we are greening, but it's senseless greening. It's doing no good to anybody. So the knowledge with my gardeners, plus this ability that okay, now I have projects, it is in my hand now to convince and try and make a difference. That sort of prepared me into suggesting to my clients that let me try, since you've given the responsibility to me, let me try. And what worked was, it will be effortless, it will be cost effective. These two were the magic words that helped me convince most people, and it has been like that. But where I have not been able to convince, are the ones where I either politely bow out, or if it's like a small project, I do go ahead. But then I have warned 100 times that if you're taking exotic, be prepared to shell out that kind of time for maintenance. That's it. But these two magical words have helped me transform many of them.
Yeah, that's very true. And being from Bangalore City, this is something that I see magical with plants. You just plant anything. Here, it just grows. All it needs is a little love and care, and that's it. The weather kind of is magic on these plants, and they just thrive.
Actually,
So,
it's a lot to do with lack of knowledge.
hmm,
Most people would be willing to, take up something which is effortless, which is helping, the local environment, but it's complete lack of knowledge, which is where, a person like me who decided to do something of my own, um, you know got a lot of work, because anybody who's looking to have a small garden or a small space green, what is the first thing that they do? They go to a nursery. The nursery guy, acha bhaiya, I have this space, ye lagana hai. He'll pick up the most exotic stuff and said, sir, ye laga lo, this is great. And then you'll end up trusting him, buying, and then after a few months probably you'll realize, oh ye to mar gaya. Then you'll blame yourself that possibly I didn't take care of it. You would never think that that guy gave you the wrong advice. And there is actually, so in our space, in space that I operate, there are either large players who would take up big projects, big landscape, and they won't have time to come back and look at what they've been doing, or tell their clients like, hey, I think, let's do this or not do this, or to educate their client that this is what should be done, this is what should not be done. So that lack of information is probably the biggest hurdle, uh, where people don't accept natural things. But there is only a minuscule percentage who really are into, I want an exotic thing. So slowly through my work itself, trying to educate them, people are willing to listen. That's a good thing that I started
I
doing.
know, I know. It sounds really good as well that people are willing to listen. And when it comes to plants, they say that if you talk to your plants, they heal, they grow. In fact, plants that are spoken to with a lot of love, affection, bloom a lot better and really are at their greenest best. Have you seen this work with any plants that you saw difficult to grow, that you started speaking to them and talking to them and noticing that they actually respond?
I completely agree with this. I think anything that is alive is very perceptive, including plants. They perceive that they are valued. If they perceive, or if they have, if they can sense that this is a place where I am safe, where I'm valued. And I tell you, even if you forget to water for days, or don't take care, or don't fertilize, they will survive and they'll bloom, because they know that they're in an environment. They can sense it. So what you're saying is completely true. I mean, I wouldn't say ki go ahead and talk to your plant every day, or treat that, but give it a safe and a nurturing environment, and I kid you not, they will try their best to have that bloom which will warm your heart. I have experienced it completely. It is true.
Okay. And coming to the people that you're working with, the natives who know each plant, who know what will really do well in which city and which temperature. What have been some memorable moments for you, Shivani, while working with them, which were your biggest ahas that you're so grateful you found this team of people?
Lots of them, but what really struck me was I was working with them in peak Delhi NCR heat, and while I, come from a background where I'm privileged to have health, food, this, that, everything, it was becoming difficult for me to stand in the sun. And these people who I was working with effortlessly went about doing their work. And I was like, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm probably eating more nutritious food, etc., etc. But you're the one who's managing 10 times the kind of work that I'm doing. How? Aisa kya? What is it that makes you and me so different? He laughed. The senior guy that, I mean, we are partners, so they are equal partners in the work that I do, and I always tell them that this company is also yours. What I am today is because, not because of only my work, it's because of the hard work that you also put in. So I call him senior partner. I said, what is it that keeps you going? He says, Didi, आप जो खाते हो ना, that's so processed and so far removed from what actually should be, what you should be eating according to the climate, is why this difference is. So then he pointed out to several, plants that were immediately growing where we were working. He says, "Ye dekho, this is local amaranth, this is a clover, this is this," and then he listed out, this is what we eat. I don't have to, half the time I don't have to go and buy my greens. I eat what is growing. What for you is wild or a weed is what we consume, because I cannot afford that much to go and buy. So that makes a difference. That makes us very resilient, because we are so connected to uh, what the local produces. So we keep better health. We are able to work in this heat, and that was a turning point for me as well. Like the whole indigenous bit, so this is fabulous. Like this is knowledge that needs to be shared. So this is one thing that I was a is a very profound memory which I'll carry forward forever. That you can have good health without spending like a lot on XYZ leaf, or the local, whatever the current fashion is. Am I eating X greens, or am I eating Y greens? Or if you stick to what is locally available and eat what is in season, you are in best of health. Nothing else is needed. So this is one thing that stands out completely in the work that I have done with them.
Yeah. And since you started your work in the pandemic also had a lot of heart-touching stories. So, since most of your team had tough times during the pandemic, are there any stories that from the team you learned on how life itself can be handled and seen better?
So I started just before the pandemic, and uh, in between we had completely shut work and everything. But it was so heartwarming that despite me telling them to you know not risk, and mine is a perishable business, so I grow a lot of plants myself. uh, i never I never really expected them to come and take care, or I said, nothing doing, everything is shut down, and they all live locally. You please take care of your health first. But you will not believe, they took turns to come and see that all the plants that we had so lovingly grown and nurtured, not a single one died. And that was so heartwarming for me, that more than anything else, they cared for uh, these, they called it कि इनमें भी तो जान है, नहीं देखेंगे तो मर जाएंगे, like using their language. So the passion, they treat them like babies, and which is why they get rewarded when they so carefully plant them. Touchwood, the success ratio has been so good in transplanting that now I can safely recommend, okay, you need something to be brought from your, someone is moving from house A to house B and has a plant that has been there forever, and you're attached to it. That's something which I very safely tell them, okay, we'll get it done, we'll get plant A to your new house, plant B, because this team of mine is so connected to their plants and sees them as another living soul rather than just a stock that we use in our business. That was very heartwarming for me.
Okay. You spoke about a plant creche. Now, how was that born? What gave you the idea for that?
So simply because of the story that I shared earlier, that resilience is what you really learn from plants, and um, I've that the tree that finally, that plant, tiny sapling that grew into a tree, and plus several other examples like that, made me realize that you know we should not give up on them. We should give them a chance. And several times, plant parents have no choice. Just like you may not have a choice with several other things in life, there should be a, a place where you can leave them behind guilt free, and you know that they are taken care of. And so several decisions in life we have to make, not because we really are cruel and want to do such things, but you have no choice. So which is when I decided that this is something that I'm really going to take it up. And also, I used to do it for my own condominium. So many people are, you know, even though they like greens, they think, oh, will it impact my lifestyle because I like to travel a lot? Then what will happen when I'm traveling? So um, I wanted to create a solution for it because the more greens you have, the better it is for you and your environment. But if this is something that is preventing people from not having greens, I can offer an easy solution, at least for people immediately surrounded. I'm willing to take care. I'm willing to babysit. Come give me. So that helped a lot of people come ahead, take greens, and I do it for free. There's no charge for it. They're like my babies. And then it's up to you. You want to take them back or you want to let them be, especially when you're moving out, you're moving different cities, moving different countries, whatever. What do you do with your plants? Earlier you had no choice, throw them or leave them behind to die. Now they have this option that you can live with them. And we also go pick up, we also go, do the transfers. So yeah. And another heartwarming thing that comes out of this, my team knows that I'm not earning anything out of it, but they have never said no to these missions that I'm going somewhere. I'm just sending them somewhere to just get these plants because they are leaving and we need to get them out. So they are as passionate about me. just the same level of passion, which is why we bond very well.
Yeah, yeah. I very strongly believe in the power of intention, Shivani. So I think when an intention is pure, when you set out on a journey, everything that happens and every person you meet on the journey to be part of your journey ends up being the right person for you. And I think that has happened with you. You also mentioned that you are into segregation and waste. So, how did that bit come? Very naturally, organically, because you're dealing with plants?
Actually, that came earlier. Um, let's see. I'm a very my parents brought us to be very compassionate about you know the environment that we are growing in. So it so happened that I was at this bus stop waiting for the school bus, my kid's school bus to arrive, and I saw this cow trying to take out food from a packet and eat. And then to my horror, I saw it, ingesting the plastic, and I didn't think twice before I ran over and pulled it out of its mouth. So another parent who was standing there, he commented, "Wow, that's gutsy. Anything could have happened. But if you're so passionate, instead of just this one incident, why don't you do something about it?" Which is then got me. So you know, this plant thing happened parallelly, but this came first, which then got me thinking. Yeah, I mean, just today I saved one cow from one single plastic. How I don't know how many it must have ingested in this, and how many more cows would have done it. So it set me thinking, and I started to approach like-minded people. And as way back 8 9 years in Gurgaon, got together a team, and we were the first condominium to at least start a two-way segregation and and tackling the various hindrances that okay, I am segregating, but how do I know what is the end result of the
Yeah.
segregation or end result of the effort that I have put in? So taking it all back, integrating it to vendors who would use the segregated ways, stitching it all together, and it was a fantastic journey, and it is all linked to the work that I'm doing right now. So a big part of what I do with the plants that the gardens that I make is also trying to teach them composting, also trying to teach them ethical gardening, and uh, how do you generate lesser amount of waste, and how you can marry both these things together and make a environment which is both green and uh, sort of waste free. We can never be 100% waste free, but at least somewhere we can make a difference to things. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think zero waste is something which is a dream. but
Yeah.
now
It
at
is,
least some awareness has come into
yeah.
people.
See,
And I
zero
think,
waste is something which is which looks which sounds good, but don't think it is sustainable. So we have to be practical as well.
yeah, yeah.
You need to know what is absolutely essential, and you need to know what you can do to at least achieve some bit of you know, what you can do, but not be so hard to do zero waste. I'm not going to, for example, I'm not going to do anything that it needs plastic. It's not possible. The lenses that I'm wearing today is what plastic. So it's not. It's you cannot cut out everything from your life, but there's a lot that you can make in changes in your daily lifestyle, which make a huge difference.
And I'm sure with your team, which is completely local, uh, their lifestyle is something which could be almost zero waste in the way they consume, with the way they live. Uh, have there been lessons of waste management from their lifestyles that you picked up, or locally something? Because, when a tribe is indigenous, there's so many secrets of being sustainable and close to nature and making nature a part of your living process, because those indigenous tribes definitely understand that nature doesn't need us, we need nature. And their entire culture, tradition, and India as a country itself has all of this so beautifully put together, right from celebrating Sankranti to Basant Panchami to Yugadi. Everything is harvest festival, nature, and nature is such an integral part of everything that we celebrate. Religion comes much later.
Yeah.
So when you live and work with localites, there's so much about their own culture, tradition, and traditional lifestyles, which talk about integrating nature into whatever they do. Have you learned some lessons like that from your team members, which you didn't know before and now has become part of what you do?
So I wouldn't say I didn't know before, but yes, reinforcement of the fact that use only as much as you need. So they would go buy for just for a meal. For example, for a meal, I would go buy for the whole week at a time of for 10 days at a time, and land up not using a lot, so wasting a lot of food. From then I've learned, because now that I'm into it and grow my own plants and see how hard a work it is, they have taught me this lesson that it is so difficult to get produce, you know even to get a batch of tomatoes is so much of hard work. They have they have repeatedly drilled this into me: do not waste food, jitna chahiye, buy only that much. So that is one big lesson learned. And eat simple. So this I often I'm very inquisitive of what lunch they are bringing, because some of them have their families back in the village and they come early, they cook and bring, and I'm very very curious that what is it that you're bringing that it takes you through the day. I am constantly snacking, but I don't see them doing that. What is it that you're eating? Sometimes those simple chutneys and rotis, and just the way they cook it, or the ingredients that would make it so powerful that those 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 food recipes, etc., is another learning that I try and incorporate. So the two big things that don't waste, do not waste, buy only that much that you need and you can consume. What is there in the fridge is not really fresh. I know people would debate on this, but eat fresh. Aaj kharida, aaj banaya. Eat,
That's
eat fresh. Yeah, don't store and eat leftovers 2 days later. They firmly believe in this, that it's not right to eat leftovers.
right.
And the other thing is this: eat the power foods. I mean, some other day, some other conversation, I would share recipes maybe of the power food that they consume, which the health freaks would take it up, lap it all up. That Acha, this is something I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're talking about your team, it seems very clear that they're so much an integral part of who you are and the work that you do. So the trust factor is an important factor when you work like this. Since it was the most difficult part of most of our lives, COVID times. Were there some stories or the loyalty element of your team which got reflected during those tough times or during your work times that you have seen how they've gone beyond the call of duty?
Like I mentioned, nobody asked them to come take care. So I have a small patch where we grow.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody, I never told them to come. But the loyalty, uh, you know, uh, the fact that it's going to cost Didi her money and whatever, make them come, risk and come and take care of stuff. Plus, when you say loyalty, see, I'm here. I've come to Boston to drop my son off to college. My entire work, including the financials, etc., is being handled by them. So I can safely hand it over to them. And because the understanding is that it is as much your business as mine, hum together jitna karenge, that will be how much we can be successful. So uh, so many times on projects, and I'm not just taking COVID period. So many times on projects, there are people who offer to pay a lot more and say, stay back, do
yeah,
this for me, do
yeah,
that. Not once, not once. To the extent that sometimes, like when I mentioned that I grow a lot of plants, but there's some stuff which I have to buy. So I have had my vendors tell me this, that you are lucky because जब bill बनाते हैं, I often ask your people that shall I hike it up? This is cute to if I earn 10% from you, I will lose face in front of her. I'd rather not do something like this and spoil my relationship. I'm okay earning what I am. I don't need any extra from you.
yeah.
So that is the level of loyalty. That, knock on wood, is how I see. And seriously, it wouldn't have been possible for their commitment to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah. This is so beautiful as far as the team is concerned, and this is something you cannot buy. You need to earn with your team.
I've been working with them for nearly more than 10 years, and
Yeah,
uh, we are very thick together.
yeah, yeah. And that trust and camaraderie is something that comes with, over the years with experiences, it gets stronger and stronger because breaking it is the easiest thing that can be done, but sustaining it is something which is a challenge sometimes, especially when there are difficult periods.
Also, like I mentioned, it's never like I'm the boss and you are my
Yeah,
employee. That relationship I have never set. And it gives me immense joy in giving them new experiences. Like I remember when we finished our first project and it went off very well, I took them out for dinner and they were like, that's an experience which they probably never had. And they were like, are you sure you want to take us to this place? Hum table pe baith ke-" I'm like, what's wrong with you? This wouldn't have happened without you. So yes, you're part of who I am. You will be a joint, we will jointly enjoy all the fruits that we came. So, yeah. So
so
that's when I mentioned enjoying a samosa with them or chai with them. That's actually true.
yeah, this is so beautiful. And as you're talking about them, one thing that comes to mind is there are a lot of times when we do self reflection, but sometimes we are so busy being busy, work around us, that there's no moment for it. But 2.5 years back, the whole world went into a lockdown and we were forced to reflect. Each one of us took our own lessons from nature because she was our biggest teacher at that point. And very clearly, she showed us who's the boss.
Yeah.
So, you are somebody who works closely with her. What were your reflections from the pandemic?
Simply that nature is super powerful. And to mess with it is to mess at your own cost. That was a very big learning. Secondly, time is precious. Time is the most precious gift that you could give to anyone, I would say, more than anything else. So while it is precious, I would like to share my time with only people or thoughts or work that I feel I want to, because time is precious. It That was a realization. And also that people have, from the work perspective, that people have consciously decided to connect back to nature. Hence, the scope of my work has grown immensely. There are now, mostly inquiries from smaller apartments and how can we have a nice green space because it helps me calm down. So people have realized that nature is all powerful and time is all important. So those two were the learnings for me, that time spent with people who I want to spend time, my team, my family, and the relationships that you forge through your career or your friendships. The most valuable thing that you can give to them is time. That is what I learned from the Bible.
Yeah. And a lot of people turned home gardeners because I think suddenly they realized that green fingers are something that we are all blessed with. It just needs a little more attention, and all of us can convert patches
It's
into
like,
green.
yeah, it's like raising a baby. You learn, but I would say give the plant, give your green baby a chance. They are resilient enough to bounce back. Don't just give up. Try it. And the biggest mistakes, that is just taking this time to probably let you know that plants, most greens get impacted by overwatering rather than underwatering. That is one lesson I want to leave your listeners with, that you would land up killing more by trying to be overprotective, over affectionate, just like we do with our kids. Too much of being a helicopter parent is not good for your child. Similarly, it is not good for your plant also. You if you drown it with too much, it is not going to flourish. But if you let it bloom, give it its space, and just like for any relationship, you need to understand how to communicate, and you give space. It's the same thing with your plant. You watered it today. Every day, take some time off to see how it's doing, and try to understand, its growth cycle, etc. Invest time in it, and I'm sure you'll have a extremely fruitful relationship with your green baby. But if you think that just being overprotective, or I must put like X fertilizer or Y stuff, is first build your relationship. And I know people might think, oh, with a plant, yes, it's true. First build your relationship, spend time just observing it, how it's growing. You developed a new shoot today, this leaf unfolded today, the bud takes so long to open. Small observations which will get you connected to the plant, and you will understand it much better. And I'll tell you, all of us will be able to have green fingers. That's given.
This is so beautiful. And three life lessons, Shivani, that you would like to leave us with.
There's nothing in life that you cannot overcome. And if you find something that heals, uh, nurture it. And nature is the biggest healer. Just try and lose yourself to nature, and it it it'll ask you nothing in return. So nothing is that serious that you cannot come out. We leave our the trauma that I went through for some other talk someday. But yeah, if I could come out of it, I think anybody could.
Wow. I read a quote which said that to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. And this is said by Audrey Hepburn. So I think people like you give us that hope for tomorrow, give us the feeling and the belief that yes, all of us can contribute to a better tomorrow. Because a little bit of green is all we need to contribute, and nature will do the rest. She'll take care of herself.
Add back to the other question that you asked, like the universe gives back to you.
Yeah.
I feel that all the work that I did in trying to, actually prevent people from chopping trees, or uprooting or trying to green, when I actually started working, I think all of them are collectively showering their blessings. So nature does give, universe will give back to you. So just hold on there, hang in there with whatever it is that is your passion. Have your belief in place, and good things will happen for sure. Plus, if you work with the intention of uplifting those around you, you needn't need you don't need to worry about success. Like, the primary aim here is my team's upliftment. I want to see them in a place where they no longer feel awkward going into a restaurant, sitting with me and dining. So their upliftment is my major goal. So the path becomes easier then, because I know that it's not money that I'm running after, it's something else. So that's another thing that I would share from what I have learned in this journey of mine.
It's truly amazing because sometimes the lessons of life are very simple, but it takes an experience for us to understand the profundity of this simplicity. And that's what is the beauty of life. The more profound the lesson is, far more simple to implement in our lives. Shivani, may your tribe increase. And thank you so much for this conversation on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Honored to have had you on the podcast. And special thanks to Rohit for writing that. And I think the universe planned this conversation because we are not connected on LinkedIn, but I just happened to see his post. So I'm so glad that I came across that post and we met. God
Well,
bless
thank you
you.
so much, Rashmi. It was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, I have to thank my husband as well for thinking so highly of me and actually giving us a chance to connect. I'm very happy to connect with you, even though I'm so far away right now. But I didn't want to miss this opportunity to speak about greens and any opportunity for that matter, being with nature
Yeah,
also.
yeah. And I think the message needs to go out there that it doesn't take too much. All it needs to be is your true self to connect with nature. So you said it so powerfully, so beautifully. Thank you so very much, Shivani. God
Thanks,
bless you
Rashmi.
and all the very best.
You have a good day as well.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. With that, we come to the end of this weekly quest of You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Do let us know if you know people who make the world beautiful. Write in to rashmi.the3rd@gmail.com. That is RASHMI dot THETHIRDEYE@gmail.com. Come, let's explore this amazing world together, both you and I.